Welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes podcast. I'm your host, Phil Huber. Today I'm joined by Logan and John, and today is episode 46. We're going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of copying furniture and projects that you find in other sources. So I hope that you can find something enjoyable about this show, and let's get started.
This episode of ShopNotes podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Plans. You'll find nearly 1,000 plans covering everything that you'd want to build. From furniture projects to gift projects, kitchen accessories, workshop projects, and jigs and more. Find your next project at woodsmithplans.com.
All right, so here's where this came from, is I've built projects for friends and family based off of a photo that gets texted to me or emailed to me with the question, hey, can you build this? And
the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
And it is kind of funny, the more experience I have in woodworking or the more skilled I've become over time is how much easier it is for me to say, yeah, I can make that. So what it comes down to then is, where do you guys fall in making copies of something that you see in from other retailers, or something that you see from the Pinterests or something like that?
Well, it's just, first off, we don't use the term make copies. We make reproductions.
Personal interpretations.
Yes.
No, I mean, this is interesting because I think you're right, Phil. I think everybody that's a woodworker at some point gets texted a photo. Hey, can you make this for me? Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, I could, but there's a couple things I might change about it. And I guess that's where most of my stuff falls.
Sure.
So a lot of the furniture I built for myself, the dining room table I'm working on right now, is all based on Thomas Mosier designs. Uh-huh. Okay. Which in of itself, the Thomas Mosier designs are all based on other designs, right?
Sure. I mean, they've had several original lines that their own designers have come up with, but
they have, but many of them are shaker reproductions, or shaker inspired reproductions. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, when it comes to building something that is designed by, let's say, Thomas Mosier, just because that's the style that I like, and I found that that's a good style that my wife and I both agree on. Sure. I have no problem aiming for an exact reproduction, but maybe with a couple changes, process-wise or construction-wise. For example, this boat side table I'm making, based on the Thomas Mosier boat side table, is theirs, I believe, are all steam lamination or steam bending. So their rails or their aprons for the table are steam bent. Mm-hmm. They're set up to do steam bending on a large production scale. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to build a 98-inch long steam bending chamber just to bend the rails on this thing. Instead, I'm going to do bent laminations. And, they have, I'm sure they have the sleds already set up to cut tenons on the ends of those bent aprons. Right. Or they're CNC'd. Or they're CNC'd, yeah. I'm not going to. I'm going to use loose tenons because that's way easier, So, as far as, I like to take the design aspects of it. And Thomas Mosier has released measured shop drawing books. In the past, and I have one of those. It doesn't happen to have the table that I am reproducing, but I would like to think that they released those for this very reason. Sure. For crafts people to take inspiration and take design from it and build it. Now, I'm not in the position, nor will I ever think I'll be in the position to spend $6,000 on a dining room table like this Thomas Mosier one is. Yeah. So I have the skill and the ability to make something that is based on that. And whenever somebody comes to my house, I'm going to say, yeah, it's based on a Thomas Mosier design. I have no problem saying that. And, I hope that at least gives the folks over at Thomas Mosher some form of credit.
Right.
Right. But I'll make the process my own. I guess that's where my distinction comes in as far as taking inspiration from a design and building it. I will take some liberties and the process will be my own.
Sure.
So,
yeah, I think part of that, taking, other people's designs or something that's widely out there, it's the easiest way to, I guess, communicate with non-woodworkers, whether it's a spouse or whoever you're building this for, to like show them or them to get you the ideas or you to show them, kind of ideas without fully drawing up a piece of furniture and then like, oh no, that's not it. And you drop something else. So it's just easy to, hop on Google or hop on, these other retailers where they can find something. Oh, I kind of like that. And you can take, several different design ideas or finishing or, and quickly, communicate what they're looking for or what you can do and that type of thing. So it's just the fastest way to get there, I think. So,
yeah. Well, and I think we're also looking at it from the perspective of, in general, hobbyist woodworkers. None of us are looking to rip off somebody's design to sell it commercially on any kind of scale. If I'm building something for friends and family, I'll charge them kind of like the cost of materials and maybe a little bit for time and wear and tear on tooling or something like that. Mm-hmm. But, it's not like I'm going into business as a copy thing, spelling it Thomas Mosher with 2 O's or something like that. And
it's called Thomas Mosher.
Mm-hmm.
It's the French version.
Tommy Mosher.
Yeah.
Tommy Mosher.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because in the world of woodworking, there is very, very few designs or ideas that have not been produced at some point, right? It's very rare to have a unique design. Like something has an influence somewhere, always does, right? Sure. So, this kind of leans heavily into the subject of, what do they call it when it's intellectual property, right?
Right.
And I get that in the sense of if you have something very, very signature of your style and somebody starts ripping it off and producing it and selling it, that's where I think you start to get into some
legally shady areas.
Yeah. Whether somebody wants to pursue it or not, that's up to them. But yeah, and it's funny. There was actually a turner. Her name's Rebecca DeGroot. She just talked about this on one of her podcasts because she has a very cool style that she does turnings where she's very like. Oh man, who's the guy that did The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Tim Burton.
Burton. Her turnings are very like Tim Burton like they're she puts big like spider legs on them and stuff. It's very cool, and you see something you're like, oh, that's Rebecca's. I know that is just because that's her style. And she just talked about this because I think she had ran into where people were using designs that were very, very similar to hers, and I think they were like selling them or mass producing them. And I could be wrong. I didn't listen to the entire podcast, but you get into some areas like that. But I think for the most part, the type of stuff we being us three are producing it's for friends or family, and we're not selling furniture that is a Thomas Mosher ripoff. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not claiming it to be a Mosher piece when I go to, whatever.
Sell
it's
it.
just, hey, what do you think of this? Does this match what you're looking for? Or how about we start with this, and then instead I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing that alter that look to it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the another piece that the most recent piece I built and sold, and it was built as a commission piece, was that poker table.
Right.
and it was loosely designed on a poker table base. The base itself, the top, I think we kind of just cobbled that together from our own minds. The base was designed. The base was based on a poker table base that we had saw for a round table.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, hey, if we take that same, organic flowing shape and just stretch it out, that might work really well. So it was, taking inspiration from that and stretching it to fit what we were doing, which was a 4x8 table instead of a round table.
Right.
So, I have no problem doing something like that, but
yeah. And then that always comes up as, as a side semi-related topic to that is, we'll get questions periodically on somebody seeing a project in the magazine. Hey, I really like your bookcase. Do you mind if or what's the permissions around making that and selling it? When it comes to the magazine, what's protected is our words and our artwork. So if you're going to make the design and sell it, totally legit. Go right ahead, knock yourself out. Good luck with it. But, just don't use our photography, our artwork, or our, copying our art or our words from it, but the end result of it or the buildings of it, make your own drawings. If you're going to use that as a sales piece, but then just, go right ahead. So,
yeah. Yeah. Which, thinking about it, like I said before, everything's been built to some degree at some point anyways.
Right.
So, claiming intellectual property on a Birdcliff linen press, for example.
Just randomly off the top of your
just
head.
off the top of my head, and saying that, because I built a Birdcliff linen press, I'm copying this, that, or another thing. Well, no. Potentially I'm making reproduction of the original Birdcliff linen press,
Yeah.
So, which was a piece that is in the Metropolitan, it's one of those things.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of, just because of the age that we live in, it's a lot easier to find inspiration from a wide variety of styles, and we're a visual people. So we're going to communicate with each other in an easy way of pictures and things that we like. And, and I think most woodworkers are going to make modifications anyway, whether it's, this table is way too big to fit in my dining room, so I need to shrink it down this way and that way. Or I hate working with walnut because the dust just gets in my mouth. And
Look at you, John Doyle.
So I'm going to make it out of flat sawn red oak or something like that, so.
Yeah. Well, and so on this, let's piggyback on that. When because I know what my process is, when somebody shows you a photo of something, how do you go about coming up with proportions and scales and sizes?
Look at other things in the photo and try, of known size and try to measure up. I'm trying to think of when people send in photos for the reader's tips and there's no measurements okay, well, I can see it's on a table saw and the blade is this big, so comparing it to that, or or known heights of things, if it's a cart next to a table saw or drill press, or you can kind of scale things off of it. Or most tables or nightstands or bed, they have standard proportions that you can kind of base things off of and then adjust to your needs, I guess. So that's how I go about doing it anyways.
Yeah. That's usually what I do too. Cause my sister-in-law asked me to build her a serving tray based on a photo that she saw. And, it was just, I don't know if it was off of Pinterest or wherever, where it just was a photo. There was no link back to anything where it came from. So this serving tray was sitting on like a cushioned stool or ottoman sort of thing. So I kind of had to go based off of that. And then I was talking to her when she said, it's, about like shoulder width apart. So when you're carrying it, it's whatever. And so from there, I just, started scaling things. So that's usually how I do it. Or if it's something rather small, if somebody has their hand in there, then you can kind of base it off of, it's as wide as the base of your hand or something like that. Or, it gets a little hairy in there sometimes, but.
Sure. So
your hand. Yep.
Right. Well, not my hands exactly, but.
So my ghetto rigging usually has to do with, this is why I enjoy building the Thomas Mosher inspired stuff, right? Is because on their sale site, they give you dimensions.
Right.
Yep.
So like this boat table, they give you the dimensions of the top. And then I usually will take a photo of it into Illustrator, and then I will make a like aspect ratio. So I know that, 1 inch on the photo is equal to 12 inches on the actual piece, which actually allows you to come down to very, very precise measurements on it, which is really super cool. Now, a lot of it does follow standard design sizes, right? So This table, for example, is 30 inches to the top of the table. That's standard table, like 29 to 30, right?
Yeah.
And the aprons on it are 3.5 inches, which I think is a little on the big side for aprons, but based on all the other Thomas Mosher drawings that I actually have the book of, it's right, So I was like, oh, this is super cool. I can actually get all my measurements that I need off of 2 different photos, a end view and a side view. And that gives me everything I need on this table, which was really cool to kind of work backwards through that process. I've already made a couple changes. According to the photo I found and the measured shop drawing legs of other tables that are a similar style, the legs should go from 2 inches down to a 1 inch foot. So it tapers roughly an inch over 26 inches or something like that. And I felt like that left it a little dainty at the bottom.
Right.
And my kids are hellions. I don't trust that they're not going to do something to it. So I actually went slightly thicker on the leg. I'm at 2 1/4 instead of 2. And I tapered down to 1 1/4 instead of 1. So just giving it just a hair bigger proportion than what the original had.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things that it's like, this is a Thomas Mosher inspired piece. I'm not shooting for an exact reproduction of it. It'll be very close. But making a couple slight changes.
Sure.
But it's a military grade.
It's a military grade.
Yeah.
It's hardened.
Well, and I did the same thing, actually. The sleigh bed that I built, my wife and I, again, based off the Thomas Mosher one, I did the exact same thing. I felt like the proportions on the Thomas Mosher one were beautiful. They worked really well. I wanted just a little bit more military grade. So I went a little heavier on the proportions on the legs, and it works great. I proportionally made everything a little bit bigger, but I thought it worked awesome. So.
Yeah, it's funny you keep bringing up Thomas Mosher. I have a Stickley catalog like over my desk that it's like when I want to build something, it's like, oh, grab the Stickley catalog and start flipping through it. And
so it's the Stickley versus the shaker.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and then you have the like the shaker stuff, which is kind of like a stripped down federal look in a lot of their appearances. And I've always found or thought that, to me, a lot of that stuff looks spindly and delicate.
Yeah, and I think that's why I always tend to military grade some stuff on it.
Yeah.
You know, some of my new click phrase of the week.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get it trending.
Yes, military grade.
It's way cooler than childproof.
Yeah.
Military grade's way cooler than childproof.
that's true.
So.
Well,
But,
I
think
like,
you're right, Phil. I think it does. It looks like spindly and dainty. It looks like it shouldn't. It looks like it should be in one of those houses that you don't really live in. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it's like, there ain't a kid running a Tonka truck into the leg of that thing.
Yeah.
You know,
You go to the grandparents' house, they have all the covers on the furniture.
Yeah.
And
You got to spend like 20 minutes prepping everybody before we go inside. Okay. You can't touch anything. Just don't touch anything. Don't climb on the stuff. Don't open the drawers. That's why we brought your own toys along. You find an open spot in the middle of the floor and you just stay right there.
Exactly.
So, but on the other hand, there's a lot of stickly pieces that I feel are too steroided.
beefy.
Yeah.
And you just want to dial back the Barry Bonds a little bit.
They're bomb proof.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's one of those things. If you're building it, change what you want.
Change what you want. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we tried to. I don't want to say we tried to beat it into people's heads this last season, but we did a little bit. It's like, hey, change stuff. We're giving you the starting point. You change what you want. If you don't want to put your chisels in that roll top timbre case, you put something else in there, sir. Like you make that for whatever you want, or
Yeah. Well, and
I think we've definitely tried to promote that of like in the magazine too. It's like people ask, very specific of down to the stain color or what wood or, all that stuff. It's just like, we'd rather see what you come up with from our design.
And take confidence in having a starting point that you don't have to do all the inventing of the wheel on. Like Logan was saying earlier, there are established standards for what's a comfortable table height for a dining room table. It's 29 to 30 inches. So you don't have to figure that out. It's right there. Start with something else where you want to make a change on it, or, whether it's a material choice or, maybe you swap out the stretcher, the aprons, instead of being one wide apron, maybe it's a wideish one and a narrow one with a space in between, mix it up.
Yeah. It's funny that you say we did the heavy lifting with like the standard 29 to 30 inch table height. There are things though, I think that you should take some confidence in, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like I cut these legs, right? So my legs for the table are done. They're cut to length. And I walked in and sat them down next to our current table, which is like a counter or bar height table. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, the table's so short. Like that's not the right height. It's so short. But I'm like, we've built tables like this before. I have built tables. I've built dining tables that are 29 or 30 inches. Yep. I have confidence that it's the right size.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, I just made this thing way too short.
Yeah. I always find that furniture projects that I'm building in the shop have a totally different scale in the shop than when you finally bring them in the house. I did a small bookcase recently, and I was trying to make it short enough to kind of tuck under another table in our house. And I was building, I'm like, this just does not seem right. So I measured the bookcase out in my shop, went inside and measured the table. All the numbers match up. I don't know why. It's like my inches went to metric inches on the inside of the house or something, that it just doesn't, but then I finished it, brought it in. I was like, oh yeah, what do you know? It works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That happened to me a couple Christmases ago, building a treehouse loft for the bed for the kids. And it did have a totally different scale in the shop as it did in the house.
Yeah.
Cause I was assuming 8-foot ceilings and they were like 7 foot 8 inches.
Yeah. But you're like, it's what, 4 inches? That's not a big deal.
Right.
You left plenty of room in there, right?
Yeah.
Right. Just cut a hole in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Poke it through.
So what if one of your kids has to kind of like army crawl into the bed or something, just
right. Yeah. So it happens.
That's funny.
Assume nothing. That's what I learned.
Well, so it's funny because I always, and I don't know where I got this from. So I have built every one of the beds in our house. Okay. Between my son's loft bed, the convertible crib to full size or twin bed, whatever size it is, our guest bedroom bed, and my wife and I's bed. And I can never remember what standard mattress sizes are.
Oh.
And then I always second guess them. Like if there's one measurement when I'm building something that I check 1,000 times, it is like my Google search history is, what's the size of a king bed? What's the size of a king bed? What's the size of a queen bed? I mean, it's like, I just never, I can never, because that's the last thing you do, right? You bring the bed into the house and you put the mattress on.
Yeah.
That's a real kick in the shorts if that mattress doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So
I did that a number of years ago. I made a bed for one of my kids, and in the process of making it, I did the same thing. Looked up the size of a twin mattress, probably 4,800 times. And when I was building it, I'm like, I think I'm just going to give myself just a little bit of room here, because I don't want to have to hammer the mattress into the frame, just so by the time all was said and done, got it into the house, dropped the mattress in there, and I had just inches on each side. And it was like, so apparently
You measured.
So apparently I had solved for error probably 2 or 3 times in the building of it. And
solid.
Yeah.
I laughed.
So you had room for a California twin bed. I think they're called.
Well, I laugh at it because I did the same thing on the, so I did the 3-in-1 convertible crib from Wood Magazine, actually. And the crib was fine. And I never changed it over to the toddler bed because I'm like, that's silly. If they can sleep in a toddler bed, they can sleep in a twin bed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to make another footboard for this thing. That's dumb. So I went from the crib to the full size or twin bed. I don't know, whatever size it is. And I did the same thing. The width is fixed. Okay. I know the width is right because it fits the mattress for the twin or the crib. I did it on the length. So and I've never cut down the rails. So it's like the mattress is in there and then there's like 4 pillows shoved between the mattress and the headboard. So my son doesn't fall down there. It's like 4 inches too long.
That's a feature because it holds all those throw pillows that
all the shams
the wives like to get.
Yes.
It's like, what else do you do with them?
That's right. You can't use
shove them down in there. Storage.
Yeah.
Right. Don't dare put your head on them.
It's a secret.
They're for show.
A secret compartment back there now.
Yeah.
I have to laugh because I did the same thing with that bed.
So we're filming this, and it's Thanksgiving week.
It is,
which means that I am going to be delivering and unveiling several of my what we affectionately call Thanksmas gifts this year.
Yep.
Or this week. So by the time this podcast comes out, I will have made the final reveal to people. So I feel like I can share what some of my projects were for this Christmas or this Thanksmas. So I showed before the birch shrink pot that I did. That one was going to my mother. So like I said, it came from a tree in the yard of the house where I grew up. So my mom and dad lived. I did, yeah. Nice. I did use
I didn't know how fast it would go.
Yeah, no, it goes pretty quick. And I actually used Baltic birch plywood for the bottom. So
I mean, it's birch, so yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. And then also for my parents, I did a bird feeder. We did a I don't know, over the top bird feeder for the TV show, which when I saw that project in the magazine from years and years ago, before I was at Woodsmith, it looked like a cool one, but the photos that we had of it were like, yeah, this is cool. It just seems like it's an over the top bird feeder. Why would you even want to do this? But we picked it anyway, just to and it ended up, I think, turning out pretty nicely because of the year that we're in, that people are home and birding has kind of taken off as a hobby. But then we built it on the show and it was like, this actually goes together really quick for as in-depth or involved as it seemed. So
until you have to cut all those shingles.
Right. Yeah. Note to self, order extra shingles.
Yeah. And Chris Fitch's tip is buy the sheets of shingles, not the individual shingles. Yeah. So
he could have said that like weeks beforehand, huh?
Right. Yeah. No.
Right.
So anyway, it's got copper wrapped around the roof panel, so that adds a little of a metallic and kind of some sheen in there. And seeing it done, it's a really cool project, and really is a weekend project in spite of what it looks like, and just a lot of fun to do. So
yeah, I think that's one that some of that white cedar I cut is going to get turned into.
Yeah,
I think that'll be a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one, the one that I had been hiding for the most part, was a camp kitchen that I made for my sister. So she likes to go camping, and she does a lot of like outdoor activities in general, whether it's hiking or mountain biking or snow biking or whatever. So wanted to have a camp kitchen. It was something that I saw was inspired from another of the woodworking magazines, which shall remain nameless for right now. So if you go to our show notes page at woodsmith.com/podcasts, you can see the photos of it. But the camp kitchen that I did was made from Baltic birch and features some cool handles that we got from Horton Brasses. So thanks to them.
They're super cool handles. Forged. So they have like +5 cool factor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. It turned out really cool. I painted it, and that was the project where I had edge glued plywood, which again, I'm standing by as a legit practice.
Yep.
That's fair.
I've already been pre-approved on the John Doyle seal of approval. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about it. So there's an opening at the top for a camp stove, like an old school Coleman stove. Down below, instead of having just like a drop down, or most of the traditional ones just have like a drop down or a removable panel on the front. I did 2 doors that open up, and then had a larger compartment for storage, and then a couple of trays and a shelf in there. So all in all, I think it turned out really cool.
Yeah, I think that has inspired me to build one for our camper.
Yeah,
I had never seen those before until you showed me the picture. I'm like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Because I've been doing all of our cooking outside. It's like, I don't want to stink up the camper. And why use my propane when I have the Coleman 428 camp stove?
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I have a lot of fond memories of a camp stove cooking from my dad when we'd go tent camping, and it's, whether it's pancakes on a griddle in the morning or scrambled eggs or whatever. So
burnt cinnamon rolls, because I just did that. Yep.
So anyway, that was,
I think it turned out really cool. And I like the paint color choices that you made for it.
Yeah. And I was wondering, because a lot of them that I've seen, like the vintage ones, are just, fir plywood from 75 years ago, which has kind of a cool factor to it, plus 75 years. But the Baltic birch plywood kind of had a mishmash of grain from gluing it up, But so I went with some General Finishes milk paints in kind of a color blocking scheme. I had a light blue, a darker gray, and a light gray that I did on there. And I think it works really well.
Yeah, I thought it turned out great. Like you said, I'm taking inspiration to build one when I have other projects done and out of the way.
Namely a certain dining room table.
Yes.
So what do you guys got going on? Well, Logan, you have the dining room table.
Yeah, and I didn't get anything done on it this weekend. I think I'll probably reserve some of that for the Thanksgiving holiday, which by the time this comes out, hopefully I have some aprons glued up for it, some vent lamination. Maybe I'll do a phone video of gluing those up, because that's always fun to see. Yeah. But this weekend I actually spent time over in Cedar Rapids. I know we've talked before about our derecho that came through and took down a bunch of trees in Cedar Rapids, and part of one of those, well, not part, the whole tree, an ash tree went down on my grandpa's house, and I had talked about that. And a byproduct of that is that his house is deemed no longer fit for inhabitants by the fire marshal because of the damage to the trusses. And we knew this. We've known this for months now.
Right.
But now working through with insurance, all the trusses need replaced because almost every truss has some form of crack in it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about this until I was talking to my dad a couple of weeks ago. When you take the trusses off a house, that means all the ceiling in the house has to come out. All that drywall has to come out. Mm-hmm. That's a big project, you know? Yeah. So our contractor that bid the repairs on my grandpa's house bid $145,000 to do the repairs on it. This is for a house that can't be worth much more than $170,000. It's a smaller house built in the 50s, right? Yeah. It's like, at that point, don't you just like set a match and start over, you know? But
yeah, that's the bid that I don't really want to do, that project bid.
No, and that's, well, and we had 3 bids that were all around that price. Yeah. But
because it's a mess. I mean, it's just a huge mess.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and
it'd be easier to start from the ground up.
It would be. And that's what I said. It's like, it's easier because you think about all the wiring that's running through the trusses, and it's a headache just to manage it. Oh yeah. But regardless, a portion of this insurance bid was to have somebody come in, and I don't know what it's like, a pack, remove, and store. So everything that's in the house has to be packed up, removed from the house, and put into storage until 6 or 8 months from now when the house is done, right? Yeah. So, in an effort to save my grandpa some money, because he is now in a like assisted type living. I mean, he doesn't get around real well, so it's like he can't go into an apartment or anything. So he's in an assisted type living. My dad and I are doing it all. So I went and helped carry out all the stuff, and I brought stuff home with me. Oh Lord, did I bring stuff home with me? I almost could not participate in this podcast because my wife was ready to wring my neck. Because
this is a safe place here.
I know, right? Well, so this is a hobby that this is a little more in depth than I was planning on getting, but this is a hobby that I've had with my grandpa for as long as I can remember. My earliest memories with my grandpa were making fishing lures. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Like my grandpa used to take me out of school, like elementary school, 3 or 4 days a week. He would come and dismiss me out of class to go fishing. I'm surprised my mom did not strangle him, but it would, like, I did it so much that we always called him Grandpa and Grandma Paint Jigs, because that's what I did when I went over there. I painted jigs with him, right? So my grandpa it's been a number of years since he's been able to get out and go fishing. But he had so much lure making stuff and so much fishing stuff. And I was always told, this is yours. When the time comes, it's yours. Yeah. I guess the time came. So I took my entire 8-foot truck bed full of fishing stuff, and I left probably 3 more loads there that I'm going to have to go back and get.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. It's been fun. Well, and it's kind of been a walk down memory lane because, a lot of the stuff I used, 30 years ago when I was, 2, 3, 4 years old. I would sit down in the basement with my grandpa with the lead pot, pouring lead sinkers and jigs and stuff. And he has, I'm sitting here looking at those little storage pull-out bin organizer things. I have 5 of those in my shop right now, full of fishing stuff. So it's been a little interesting because I love fishing and I do a lot of fishing still. I have no interest in making jigs anymore because I now have more jigs than I could use in 10 lifetimes. So, and I have no desire to go into a jig making business, making jigs. But what interests me is making some crankbaits, kind of blending woodworking with the lure making. And there's a couple of guys I follow on YouTube, one of which is Marlon Bates. He's actually in Cedar Rapids. Oh, okay. and he hand carves wooden crankbaits. So I'm getting these weird ideas in my head that, like, what, maybe I'm going to use some of this stuff and make some wooden lures and stuff. And I just think it might be fun. So yeah, I didn't get a whole lot of woodworking done this weekend. That is upcoming, but I'm hoping that maybe I'm setting the stage to do some very specialized woodworking here in the next year or so.
Cool.
Yeah. So if anybody that's listening needs some fishing stuff, you just let me know. You can send me an email. Part of what I left there was probably, I'm guessing probably close to 900 to 1,000 pounds of lead. Like, I'm thinking about just bringing it home and let my kids play with it.
Sure. That's always a good idea.
Yeah.
It makes great chew toys.
And that's what I thought. Yeah. I was like, hey,
teething and
your gums don't hurt anymore after you chew on it, right?
Right.
Right.
John, you got anything going on?
Oh, I've just been kind of dinking around in the shop, working on some shop organization projects and that kind of thing. Nothing too exciting.
Okay.
So just hiding out, getting away from the fan.
That's where we've come to in the pandemic. At first it was, hey, we're all home. We get more family time together. Now we're hiding out from each other.
It's like, come out in the shop. Let's do something. Now it's like, I'm just going to go out there.
Yeah.
Don't come looking for me.
I'm going to lock the door from this side.
Sitting there and cry.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah, this is usually the time of year that I'm like, I think it's the long Thanksgiving weekend where I come up with some harebrained project or idea to get done before Christmas and start on it the first week of December and just go nuts and regret it later. So we'll see what I come up with maybe this weekend.
I mean, you kind of did that with the outdoor playground, right?
Yeah, all of that stuff between the loft bed and the
jungle gym
playhouse and the jungle gym and the house and the basement and so.
I mean, you're kind of running out of places for giant harebrained schemes.
Right, exactly.
I think you should go on YouTube and who's the guy that he makes all the weird
Izzy Swan?
Izzy Swan, yes, thank you. Yeah, I think you need to go get some outdoor down the road thing for the kids. Build something that's
some walking geared spider contraption that the kids are going down the road in.
Yeah, I don't see what could go wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Street legal.
I mean, yeah, you have a kid that's pretty much driving age anyways. Screw a car.
Yeah.
Cool kids drive 8-legged walking plywood creations to school.
Yeah.
Bruce car.
Yeah. It's some kind of anime mech unit there that you just kind of. It's street legal because it's got turn signals on it, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Put some reflectors on there. Good to go. So.
Okay.
Tune in next time.
Yeah. All right, as a reminder, you can always catch the ShopNotes podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch us on our YouTube channel and see some of the things that we're talking about. Also, don't forget to check out our show notes page where we'll show some other photos and links to some of the things that we find interesting around the woodworking interwebs. Otherwise, thanks again for listening, and please share the podcast with someone else that you know who would be interested in woodworking and learning about the design process or building, or just enjoy a little chit chat about one of your favorite hobbies. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and we'll see you next week on the ShopNotes podcast.
This episode of the ShopNotes podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Magazine. Woodsmith Magazine has been the trusted source for all your woodworking information for over 40 years. From tips and techniques to furniture projects to shop projects, you'll find it all at Woodsmith Magazine. Subscribe today at woodsmith.com.